Alrighty, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Modern Working Musician. My name is Keegan Palusa. I'm your host. I'm a musician, educator, songwriter, person coughing, just doer of musical things. And this is the very first episode back. We did a couple of episodes. We did like 3 episodes almost a year ago. I had this idea to take different musicians and feature them. And this is going to be the first episode back. And I just kind of wanted to talk about what I've learned through starting a podcast and going dormant for a while, why I went dormant for such a long time, what I've learned, the lessons I've learned as a musician and educator, and all that good stuff. And just kind of get us back into the feel of what it means to be what it means to be a modern working musician to me, and just to kind of kick this thing off because honestly, guys, the past few conversations and the past few interviews I've had have been fantastic, and it's this thing's definitely got some legs on it this time around. So I'm pretty stoked. So I just kind of wanted to get back rolling and ramble into a mic for a few minutes for this very first episode coming back. There's not going to be any video, not going to be any really fancy production, just Keegan riffing into a mic. So let's start off with why this podcast kind of fizzled. So I started this podcast about a year ago when my brother was fresh off The Voice. I'm a big listener of like Tim Ferriss and all those guys, and I really love teaching, sharing information, educating people, whether it's my own experience or through somebody else's experience. So I really wanted to get that started. But I'm also really bad about diving into things and then running into hitches that were unforeseen, and those hitches turning into really big roadblocks that can turn into hurdles and just kind of grind things to a halt. And that's exactly what happened that first time. So the first time I had 3 episodes released and then one on the back burner. And firstly, I didn't do my due diligence in distribution services. I just kind of Googled the first one. This kind of said it was the best one, and they were like, all right, we'll get all your stuff on all the streaming services and everything. I was like, all right, that's all fine, well and good. So I signed up. I posted my episodes on there, and nothing happened. And I kept getting emails and stuff saying everything was on there, but I would do a quick search on Spotify and iTunes, and nothing was showing up. So that was kind of frustrating. And then me being the person I am, that's just a man of so many shenanigans, this became one of those things that started to turn into a problem. And then I started to get behind in my interviews and my episodes, and it just kind of ground things to a halt. And partly because I was just kind of, I felt so much obligation to present this thing to the world that wasn't really well done or was behind. So it just kind of fizzled. But that being said, coming back this time around, one, I've got a few more pieces of gear that make my recording that much more mobile, which was another reason. Like I had some really cool interviews lined up, but I wasn't very mobile. So it made it kind of hard to do the interviews that I really wanted to do, like the Dan Vargason interview that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And it just, between that and all the other things, it just kind of, like I said, ground to a halt. So I'm a little bit more mobile now. I've done my due diligence as far as distribution services, and the service I'm with now, I uploaded the original 3 episodes, and within 72 hours they were on all streaming platforms. It was just that quick, and it was so cool. So I've learned a couple of really valuable lessons between then and now, as far as your career, as far as presenting your art to the world and being honest. And those are kind of some of the things, the lessons I wanted to present to you. I think I've learned more than anything to only do what you can do consistently. And you'll hear me recommend this book about 1,000 times. Atomic Habits by James Clear. But one thing it does really well, it puts in perspective as far as consistently doing things. Those are the things you're going to be successful at. So if you get a wild idea, that's great, but if you can present that idea or work on that idea consistently for a long period of time, I'm talking months and years, those are where the success comes. And I've had plenty of wild hair ideas. And I think when I came back to this idea for this next run of shows, and I'm much more excited about it now, is because I've kind of mapped out a way to do this podcast consistently. Whether it's managing my time better or finding a way to scale things and create a method or a habit that allows me to consistently present episodes, it's just going to make it that much easier. And learning, kind of having a plan of attack for how to do that has made it that much easier to jump back into this. And not only that, but to be excited about it, because I know that the things that overwhelmed me before aren't going to overwhelm me as much. But I also learned just to cut yourself some slack. I feel like in this content-driven age that we live in, it's so easy to feel obligated to present things all the time. And I had a conversation with one of my friends a couple of weeks ago about this, and I think it's pretty valuable. I listened to an interview with Robert Downey Jr., and he said that, if you're really, really great at what you do, time is nowhere near as relevant. And honestly, if the people that I'm talking to are great, which I think they are, how consistent or how obligated I feel to be in everyone's face all the time with the content that I create becomes less relevant, because the people that I speak with matter so much to me, and they're saying such great things. So time becomes way less relevant. But I also just learned to cut myself some slack. If you miss a week or two, it's okay. Get back on the horse. There's a really good lecture, Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability. It talks a lot about identity, and then so does James Clear. But once you see yourself as something in a positive sense, it becomes that much easier to stick with. Case in point, I just finished. I did a marathon in December, and seeing myself as, I'm Keegan, I am the runner, made it that much easier to stick with running if, I missed a day of running or something like that. If I wasn't that consistent with running, or if I missed a few training sessions, I still saw myself as a runner, so I didn't just crash and burn and grind to a halt. So, seeing myself as an educator or somebody that makes these kinds of things, if I miss a week of putting a podcast out or a piece of content, it's not the end of the world, because I still know who I am at the end of the day. And then another thing I learned is just to be honest first. So be honest with your art, which is kind of difficult at times, but if this is the version of myself, if this is the most honest version of myself that I can present, it's going to be that much more enjoyable in the long run. And lastly, just have fun. This should be fun first. In my conversation with Bargeson coming up, we talked about what is a hobby versus what is a career, and kind of how to judge that for yourself. And I think that's really important. And right now, this podcast, to me, more than anything, should be fun. It shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be the thing that I stake my life on, because as soon as I hit some sort of problem, it's going to be that much harder to solve, because I feel like there's more riding on it. And truth be told, this is fun. This is my chance to present something to the world that I think is truly valuable and that I think is worth listening to. So, more than anything else, I should enjoy it and not get bogged down. So, those are just a couple of little life lessons I've learned. I got so bogged down in like presenting content and the buzzwords, content, engagement, trending, all those things, what the next big trend was, and constantly chasing the next trend that I got really burnt out. And honestly, guys, I almost walked away from music for a little while. I was just ready to hang it up because I was so caught up in the things that were way less important than just being honest with your art and your communication with people. So that's pretty much it. Just a little bit of discussion on what this podcast is all about. In truth, it's just about people who have found a way to present their art to the world in a way that they enjoy. There are people on this podcast that they're not full-time musicians. They're not, they're not full-time gigging musicians. There are educators on here. There are producers. There are songwriters. There are accountants. There are going to be venue owners. And these are the people, I think, that have found a way to present their art to the world in a way that they enjoy. And that's what matters most. And I think that's what it truly means to be a modern working musician, is to find a way to make the art that you want to make possible. And coming off of this weekend after my conversation with Dan was so great because he has found a way to truly enjoy what he does in music now, which so many of us, it's difficult. We want to make music and we feel like part of that, you should feel obligated to chase the dream, as it were. Some people, like, being a musician means striving to do the big thing and do it really big and to, win Grammys and do all that stuff, which is fine, well and good and everything. But honestly, if I could go to bed at night knowing that I presented the most honest version of myself to the world, I think that is far more valuable than chasing any sort of trend or trying to fulfill some social obligation as far as music. So what does it mean to be a modern working musician? Those are just some of my thoughts. If you can present the best version of your art to the world and make ends meet, it doesn't matter if you're doing it full time. It doesn't matter if you're a rock star or you're just playing, acoustic gigs at an open mic night. So just some closing thoughts. We have some really cool guests lined up. We have a Patreon, KeeganPaluso.com. Patreon.com/KeeganPaluso. It will be up here soon. But that being said, I'm really excited for the amount of material that is about to come out. There's some really cool things happening in the works. I think I made a list earlier. I've already got 3 interviews done and probably another 8 or 9 scheduled for this season. And then we'll just keep going from there. But until next week, I hope you guys have a great time and we will see you later.